everybody. Justin Null here. I am stupid excited about this episode because we've been trying to make this episode happen for quite some time. I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite people in the world who is on an amazing mission that I am super honored and thrilled to be a part of. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, Miss Hilary Boynton, the lunch lady. Hilary, how you doing?
I'm great. How you doing? Glad to be here.
I'm doing well. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Are you excited?
I'm super stoked. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
It's been a long time coming, like you said.
I know it has. And it was weird. Like we talked last week and we're like, you know what? Let's just do Monday. That works. Let's do this.
It's time.
So I want to start off by, so obviously a lot of people won't know who you are, or some might, maybe. I've definitely mentioned you on different podcasts and such. So I'm sure some people have poked around, and I think I've shared your YouTube video at one time or another. But I want to just give people an idea of who you are and kind of how all this came to be. So I always ask people what the journey was like from going to like just Hilary to the lunch lady, Hilary Boynton. Like, how did this happen? Just kind of take us back to where holistic health and wellness really came into your life.
I know. I'm like, do you want the long story? Oh boy. Okay. I'm like, it starts about 12, well, even longer than that. But I was a 26-year-old struggling with infertility for 3 years, which was probably the most painful time of my life. I wasn't, understanding why my body wasn't working for me. But looking back, I know I fell hook, line, and sinker for the fat-free model that came out when I was in high school. And so for about 10 years, I followed that pretty diligently. And I think that really didn't do wonders for my body, for sure. And then certainly not for reproduction health. And so then I ended up having triplets through in vitro. So got slammed with 3 kids right away after 3 years of infertility. And then thought we'd have one more just to see what it was like to have one. And whammo, I got pregnant on my own. And that little guy struggled with eczema from the age of 2 months on, just head to toe, full on scratching all the time. And it was just really heartbreaking. And that's what sort of propelled me into trying to figure things out, because every doctor was like, he's going to need steroid cream and Zyrtec twice a day. And this is just his lot in life. And, he's going to have asthma and eczema and allergies. And that's just probably what he's going to have to struggle with. And ironically, this came to me about like 6 months ago. I was giving a talk at the Take Back Your Health conference, or maybe it was a year ago. I don't know when it was, but I had decided after having the triplets, I kind of stumbled upon Alice Waters and Jamie Oliver and school lunches, and was just like, oh my gosh, we got to change school lunches. This is horrible. And so before my children were even of age to go to school, I started to dive down that rabbit hole. And somebody in my town of Concord, Mass. introduced me to Kristen Canty, who's the producer of Farmageddon and has started a whole farm-to-table restaurant in Concord, Mass. And I called her up. I'm like, hey, you want to try and change school lunches with me? And she's like, oh my God. She's like, I banged my head against the wall for a long time, but if you want to try again, I'll help you. And anyway, she kept telling me, Weston Price this and Weston Price that, and magazines and journals and co-ops. And I had no idea what she was talking about. And then she told me about raw milk. And I was just like desperate for my child. And she had healed her son of allergies with raw milk. And so I was like, sure, I'll try anything. And I put him on raw milk and cod liver oil. And like within months, he was completely healed. So that was really like my aha moment of just like, what? Real food just healed my son. And then when he was 6 months old, I was pregnant with my 5th baby. And then it was just like, holy hell, like 5 babies under 4. And I really dove into, I started running an Amish co-op for like 6 years, kind of underground out of my house, because I just believed so wholeheartedly in the power of food as medicine. And I wanted other families to have access to this beautiful food. So that was the beginning. And then you want to know how it morphed into the lunch lady? Oh my God. It's
well, the lunch lady too, but I know that, if we started at really step one of the Hilary's claim to fame, right? I'd like to get into how the Heal Your Gut cookbook came to be. Right. Was that after dealing with your son's issues?
Yeah. So then I decided I really wanted to go back and get some sort of degree. So I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I did that all online so that I had some sort of credential to say that I could, give people some help and advice. And I started teaching cooking classes out of my home. I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops. And we have a daughter, one of our triplets, our only girl. We have 4 boys and a girl. She has epilepsy. So I was always on a quest to kind of try and figure out what I could do for her. And I knew food was a big part. And so I had a medical intuitive told us that the GAPS diet would be good for her and for our whole family, actually. And so, which is the gut and psychology syndrome, like the gut-brain connection. And Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride was the founder of that, or the creator. And she had healed her child of autism probably 20-something years ago at this point. So I decided to just dive into that. And a woman that was in my cooking class was also on the GAPS diet, and she's a photographer. And we were both struggling because there was just nothing out there that was really inspiring and beautiful. And it was just very confusing and conflicting information. So she was like, we should write a book. And I was like, we should. And so we just literally pitched it to actually Diana Rogers gave us her publishing company, which we ended up breaking up with them after a while, but because he wanted it to be a paleo book. He was just like, it has to have paleo on the front. And I'm like, it's not paleo. It's GAPS. So I stuck to my guns, which I think was good because it is a really specific niche. People who are looking to heal their gut, understood what they were getting. So we set out to write this book, and then literally I handed the book over to the publishing company to be, put into book form. And then like a week later, I think it was like a week later, so my husband at the time got diagnosed with throat cancer. Wow. So then it was just this whole, whirlwind of trying to heal him. And we didn't tell anybody for 8 months because at that point I knew that like he was like a big old, just a dirty fish tank. Like his immune system was so just compromised, and that if he were to run into treatment, that I felt like it just wouldn't be serving him that well, and that he wouldn't be able to fight.
Yeah.
And if you have a strong immune system. So anyway, we ended up moving to California to a new way of life, get out of stress, a more holistic treatment. And then we moved around 3 times and landed in Topanga because of the Manzanita school. So his first day out of bed, we were like, let's take a drive to Topanga. We've never, we're in this little bubble. And somebody at the store was like, oh, you got to go check out this new school. It's in its first year and people are moving here for it. And I went, we drove right there. And the chef was like, oh, the kids just caught their own fish today and we cooked it up. And I really want to roast a whole goat. And I was like, what?
Whoa.
I have found my place. So that was it. We literally were like, we're moving to Topanga. So we applied and we got really amazing financial aid because we have, 3 kids at the time that were headed in there. And so it just sort of was like divine alignment, like everything just lined up.
That is amazing.
So
yeah.
And then I can tell you, I guess, how I moved into the lunch lady, but that's how I got to Topanga and how I ended up at Manzanita.
Yeah, it's great. It's going to hit home for a lot of people because it becomes this like N=1 thing of it becomes like citizen science where you're like, your son had eczema and it's just steroid creams and pills and this and that. And like you said, the term that you said that drives me nuts is like, well, this is his lot in life. And you're like, right. Oh, really? We have to settle for this? And then with your daughter, I know the epilepsy thing was big too. That's actually, to give people some backstory, one of the first conversations we had, showed up at your house and through Diana Rogers and we ended up just chatting about seizures. We talked about my niece and your daughter and everything. That's how we ended up here. But yeah, I want to talk about how, I guess my question is, Manzanita, did Manzanita come to you for this, or did you have to do any convincing or because that's what I think people kind of fear the school system, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's parents.
Well,
go
ahead.
I always tell people, I'm like, it's as if parents are like afraid they're going to get detention if they go like challenge the teacher or challenge the administrator. So I want to see how this relationship came to be.
Yeah. Well, I did. So for about 10, maybe it was a little less than 10 years or so, in Concord, Mass, I tried for a long time with the public school system, and it was really challenging. I mean, we like finally got somewhere, and then the head of food services, he was somebody who had worked on the show that Jamie Oliver did about changing school lunches. So we were like, woohoo, this is amazing. And then he had a baby, and he was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to move closer to home. And I was like, what? Oh my God.
No.
We had to start over. And it was just like, brand new director of food service. I was just, I'm sure a lot of parents can relate. I think they just tire you out. And then your kids graduate from that school and you're like, all right, whatever, I'm out of here. So that was really frustrating for me. Really, really frustrating. So but then when moving to the Manzanita school, I was so excited, and the school was only like 30 kids at this point. But then as it got bigger, they started to outsource the lunches, and they just went downhill. They weren't really up to par with, I thought, which was what would be in alignment with the school. It's a nature-based school. And I'm like, we really need to be serving meats that are, from animals that are sustainably raised, and organic vegetables and local, seasonal, all this stuff. It just, for a school that's very in line with nature, I was just like, we are a part of nature. We are, with our microbiomes and everything. It just didn't seem in alignment. So I pushed my way in. I got hired as the snack coordinator and a consultant to the lunch lady, the actual lunch lady that was outsourced. So I was like, this is great. I gave her my book. I gave her Nourishing Traditions. I'm like, we can make bone broth. I'll help you. We could do all these things. And she was like, yeah. Smile, smile, smile. And then I got pulled over by the head of school. She was like, that can't happen again. Like, she freaked out. She wants to quit. You're just like totally overwhelmed her. And looking back now, I'm like, of course that was probably not the right approach. She was like, I don't want to work harder. She services 8 schools. And here I was, this little like, whippersnapper coming in, like, we can change everything. And so I got backed off, and I just started doing the snack, and it was like 100 snacks a day. And I was in a bit of a panic mode because I'd only ever cooked for my family. So I'm like, how am I going to make 100 of anything? And I was reaching out to friends and local restaurants. And then one friend said to me, like, just do it yourself first. Just try before you start like outsourcing everything. And now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, not only am I making the snack, but I'm making lunches now for everybody, and it is doable. Mm-hmm. But I just started going to the farmer's market, reaching out to all the national brands and local brands that I had become friends with through the Weston Price Foundation over years of going to conferences, and just people that I knew, like Organic Pastures and Sandeep from Pure Indian Foods Ghee, and whomever I could think about. And then I would go to the farmer's market and just get whatever was surplus or cool or good teaching moment. If they had a ton of zucchini, that I'd make zoodles, or if they had sunchokes, like I remember roasting sunchokes and making a soup. And I was like lying in bed at night, like, oh my God, they're going to hate the soup. It's like a brown soup. And they chowed it the next day. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was the biggest surprise.
That's
so
great.
I just started to show what could be done.
Yeah.
And then come December, it just still, the lunches, I mean, I was still making my own kids' lunch because I didn't want to have them eat what was being served every day. So I had a really frank discussion with the head of school, and there were some other health issues. And I just said, like, what are you waiting for? Like, he's seen our story, and it's so heartbreaking with, like, I mean, my ex-husband now, but he's still alive, thank God. But, it's devastating. Everybody's been touched by cancer. It's devastating. And so I just said, these kids deserve the best, like right now. And I can do that for him. He's like, if I give you the job right now, can you handle it? And I was like, yes, I can handle it. Inside, like, oh my God, what did I just commit to? Yeah. And so he said, okay, like, let me, do some work. And he gave me the job over Christmas break. So I had like a week to like hire staff and clean out all the like aluminum pots and pans and fix it all up to, how I wanted it, and get people in there and write a menu and get going. That was a year and a half ago. And you went as far as you purged even the cookware and everything. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. So it was like, I need to learn my herbs. It was a full on start from scratch. And I hired a woman who was a chef Pam, who's in the kitchen with me. Thank God. She was a trained chef, so she was able to have those systems, in her head that she knew had to be put in place, and helped me with that. And even still, we're still refining systems, but it's all about systems. So I
Wow.
would say it's not hard. It's just time and systems.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people that systems is just so important. There's a great book actually called The Checklist Manifesto that talks about that, where you can build a system, you can systematize anything, and the time saving and the error correction and all that is just staggering. But so for a year and a half, it's crazy to me because I would say most Americans at this point probably haven't even had a farm to table restaurant experience. And now you've been giving a farm to table lunch experience every day to these kids for a year and a half. So I guess my biggest question is, with this farm to table thing kind of being unknown as an experience for most people in the country, like I said, parents are kind of afraid of administrators and teachers and stuff. I also see a lot of parents that are afraid of their kids. Like, they're afraid the kid's going to have a tantrum if they remove the sugar, they're going to have fights and blah, blah, blah. So how did the kids respond to this changeover of from the junky lunches, the prepackaged stuff that you didn't really want, to this new farm to table mode? Like, did they embrace it? Did some parents fight you? Did some kids not want to eat? Like, how did that go, the transition?
Yeah. Well, the snack was really awesome because I would have kids like, doing daffies like off the stairs on the way to snack. Like, what's for snack today, Miss Hilary? Like, they were so excited. And
Great.
so it was always something different and fun, and they could try it. So that really developed a trust between us. And so they, it was just like, just try it. You don't have to love it, but just try it. And then with I was just talking to a friend about this, that when we first started, I was making like, all these salads of like the vegetarian sides or whatever would be like tomato mozzarella and basil, or tomato corn and basil, or zoodles. I was mixing things, and then I realized it was just like too gourmet. So I had to kind of ratchet back and just offer like everything individually, so that they could pick and choose. So it wasn't overwhelming, because we are 4th through 12th grade. So, a little 4th grader might be like, like everything's touching and I don't like that, you know? So it's really like, I firmly believe in the model that we're setting is in training lunch leaders, because what you need is this constant group of people that are going to show up, put love into your food, and then come out and talk to you about it every day, day after day, and encourage you to try things, or the kids, and explain why, even to the staff, to the parents. We invite the parents in once a month for a PAL program, which is Parents at Lunch, so they can enjoy it and see what we're up to. They're allowed to come in and volunteer. But yeah, it takes tending, because we've gone so far in the other direction that it's like, we really are retraining taste buds. But I will say the kids, there really wasn't a lot of pushback. I mean, there are, certain kids that are like more finicky than others, but it's a beautiful sight when you see all these kids and their peers and staff all sitting down together, enjoying a beautiful meal. They know, and I can often get up on the little stage and tell them, hey, this is from this farm, and make sure if you're going to the farmer's market that you tell your parents to go visit this guy and say thank you, or we invite farmers in. It's really it's really about a constant tending, I think. And that's what develops that trust. And then the parents see what's happening, and the staff, they understand that you're pouring your heart into this, and there's a reason why.
Yeah. And I think the education piece is huge, because there's the disturbing trend that I see is one, I like that you started with snacks, because I want to chat a little bit about what those snacks look like, because the word snacks is problematic in my mind. I go through this with parents all the time. There's like, okay, I can feed my kid this meal that's scrambled eggs and avocado or whatever, but what about snacks? What about snacks? And the issue is that in American culture, we hear the word snacks, and it just brings to mind like goldfish and gummy worms and just like cheap processed sugar and carbohydrates. And then the other thing that happens is parents look for these substitutes. And what they mean by substitutes is like, what's a healthy version of goldfish? What's a healthy version of pancakes and syrup? What's a healthy version of waffles, or blah, blah, blah. They want these healthy versions of things, but they don't understand the training mechanism that's in place there. So if you teach a kid waffles and syrup are fine because you got them from some keto company, or, this junk food is fine because it's low carbohydrate and keto approved, but still comes in a packaged box or whatever, you're training them that waffles and pancakes and junk food are okay. And 99.9% of the time out in public, the keto-friendly version is not going to be available. So they're just going to eat the pancakes and syrup.
Right.
So it's really, exactly. It's all like a mindset training and getting them used to these things through this kind of tending and nourishment and education. So just out of curiosity, when you were doing the snack thing, what does snacks look like for you? Like, what do you consider good, solid snacks for kids?
Well, I mean, and the truth of it is really, like you and I both know, if you're feeding your kids really nutrient dense meals, that they probably won't be that hungry for a snack, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, but you can't depend on all kids getting a big nourishing breakfast, or, with lots of fats and protein and whatever. So, or they're certainly not having like a bulletproof hot cocoa or whatever, they're not like, I'm gonna fast until lunch, So the snacks, we'll do anything from, like, when I was just doing snacks, I would roast up vegetables with healthy fats. I mean, healthy fats is one of the biggest things that I really feel strongly about. Because you can go to a farm-to-table restaurant, but if they're dumping canola oil on everything, because they just cut, they're all about cost, and it's like, well, that stinks. So, but if you're tossing things with beautiful fats, and especially for the vegetarian kids, if you're getting ghee on stuff, it's amazing. Like, even when we do popcorn, which is like a carbohydrate, we use 3 fats. We use red palm oil from my friend who sustainably harvests it in Gambia. Her family lives in Gambia, and they've been doing this for many, many years. It's called Juka's Organics. So most palm oil is not sustainably harvested. Right. So we have palm oil, which makes it look like movie theater popcorn. Then we use coconut oil and ghee. So the smoke points are higher. And then we put Redmond's real salt on top. We'll put seaweed for extra minerals. Like, I call it like fairy dust from Dr. Linda's. Or we grind our own, but it's just like, so it's giving them, again, that is like an example of something that might be like, they might be buying smart food or some sort of pirate booty or something like that. But this is a little more of a nutrient dense version, which again, isn't going to be available out in the general, grocery store. But mostly it's all on a daily basis. The snack, we have broths out, we have bone broth, we have a miso soup for the vegetarians, we have a raw kefir. We're really fortunate to be able to serve raw dairy. So we make a raw kefir, and in the beginning we had to put fruit and more honey than I thought was probably what I would want to put in, but we had to entice the kids with a little bit more sweet, and then we just ratcheted it back over
of course.
Of the year. So now, some of them drink it plain. I mean, not everybody comes to get kefir because it's more tart. So now I'm kind of like working back in, thinking this year, like, okay, how can I entice more kids to have raw kefir? So it's like, you got to constantly be making things different and exciting. We do sprouted, nuts that we soak and dehydrate ourselves, so they're more digestible. Wow. But I might find like almonds in the shell that are right off the tree, and then I put a bowl of those out, then I put a bowl of like them half opened, like when they've lost their first outer shell, and then I have the almond that's not sprouted, and then our almonds that have been soaked and dehydrated. And so I have them see all the stages, and I have them try a nut that's like probably like the nut they're going to taste in the grocery store, and then I have them try what we've done to it. And I feel like once you have a crispy nut, like, you don't go back. And then once you understand nut gut, or you've felt, most people have had too many nuts at one point in their life and been like, oh, I had too many nuts, so it's, and then educating them is like, maybe just have like 10 nuts, don't have 50. It's easy to overdo it, and this is why you don't want to. So we do a trail mix, and we try and have coconut in there, and sometimes we'll put a little bit of dried fruit, but I know that that's, again, sugary and training their taste buds. But again, you have to entice them. So it's local. We dry it ourselves, or we're getting raisins from a local farmer that are just beautiful and unique, and they're giant, and kids are like, what is that? So you don't need too many of them. So, and then we'll cut up fruit, but, and then we might do raw cheese cubes. And what else do we do? If we have anything fun and unique, like I found chestnuts at the farmer's market that are like prickly balls. That doesn't sound great, but they're like really prickly. Not put a sign out like, who knows what these are? So then you're engaging them, and like nobody knew what they were. And then I was like, there's a Christmas song that involves these. And so then you kind of get them engaged in it. And it's just, you have to make it fun and engaging and get them to come over to the snack table. Or we might have them like, hey guys, we have a whole box of peas that need to be shucked. Would somebody go sit at snack and shell the peas or corn or whatever? So then they see the corn with like grubs on it, and they understand that, like I remember one kid, they have stewardship at school, so they tend to a certain part of the land, and if they're by the kitchen, they will sometimes offer to jump in. So I had them shuck all this corn that had total grubs on it, and then, you know, we chop it all off, we clean it up, and because most people at the grocery store just see beautiful corn that, you know, think that's the way it comes. And then the next day I sauteed corn with basil and a little salt and put it in lettuce cups. And like the kid who shucked it the day before was like, was this the corn that we shucked yesterday?
Yeah.
So he was having a little bit of trouble deciphering or to decide whether to, like, you know, after seeing the grubs. But then actually this year, so that was last year, this year I had kids like literally throwing grubs in the air and eating them. It became like, what was that food show where they you know, challenge you to eat bugs?
Like Fear Factor. Yeah.
Fear Factor. It was like Fear Factor at Manzanita. I was like, okay, what's going on? But they, you know, so it's all part of nature, right? So they're getting exposed to that. This is the way things are supposed to be. It's not just
it's so beautiful because it is, we just live in this like ultra sanitized world. So there's a couple pieces to this, because my brother's son, I want to say he's almost 3 now, little guy. And you look at snacks. So people think of snacks, and again, snacks bring to mind this nonsense junk. I'm trying not to swear on this podcast in case parents listen to this one with their kids, because I swear a lot.
I owe like $3,000 to the swear jar or more. So
that's why we get along so well.
I know.
But yeah, it's this idea of snacks, right? So snacks bring to mind this junk. And people always laugh because my brother will like send his kid to school or whatever. Like he'll use a snack size Ziploc bag. That's the only thing it has in common is it's a snack size, right? But he'll put scrambled eggs in there, or like sliced up avocado. And Tyler just reach his hand in there and he'll eat, 3 scrambled eggs as like his snack, or eat half an avocado as his snack. But then I've actually told people this, and they're like, yeah, but don't his hands get messy? Like, wait a minute.
The kid.
Yeah, he's
the
a
kid doesn't
kid.
care.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring like some non-toxic baby wipes with you and wipe the kid's hands after. Run his hands under the sink. Like,
wash his hands after.
Yes, it's this idea.
People get a little manic about that, which is kind of crazy.
They really do, and it's the idea of just simply I have a t-shirts that say this: just eat whole foods, change the world. It's the problematic term is this idea of snacks. Snacks has been hijacked, quote unquote. Snacks has been hijacked by marketing companies. A snack is just a small portion of food.
Right.
That's it. If we can look at it like that, it gets better. So I want to kind of give people some practical advice here, because you've listened to my interviews and stuff, and we know each other well. So I tend to be more conversational than interview, but it helps to, when we share our own stories, because you and I both got into this health and wellness thing, it's what I call just wisdom through experience. We now have wisdom through experience that we can share with other people. So how do you handle, I guess, I hate using the word normal because I feel like it like pigeonholes people, but I'm like, how do you handle quote unquote normal people events? Because the biggest challenge that I see here is church events, school events, doctor's offices, summer camp, wherever kids go, grown-ups are handing them junk. And then I see parents that are almost mad at their kids. They're like, well, no, you don't understand. My kid just won't give up soda, and my kid just won't give up the sugar. And I'm like, a child doesn't even know junk food exists until grown-ups hand it to them. This is not the kid's fault, Yeah. So how do you navigate that?
Tragic. Because, I mean, a couple things. I was going to say, I remember my 5th baby eating liverwurst all the time. Liver, no problem, because they don't have any preconceived notions. They're not like, ew, that's gross, that's an organ meat.
Exactly.
They love the like sensation in their mouth. And so with avocado, same thing, like expose your kids as young as you can. I mean, like baby's first food should be like a barely cooked egg yolk and shaved liver on top.
Yeah.
So, but most parents are like, what? They don't quite understand that, but just keep exposing them at a young age. But it does get really tricky. I mean, my kids have been through the GAPS diet for 2 years, and they see broth and they're like, oh, Mom, please don't make us drink broth. I'm like the cobbler whose kids have no shoes. They're like going through the line. And I'm like, please, can you just be a shining example of what I tell you every day? And, I'm like, but I have to let it go a little bit, because
of course
they're already like, my mom's such a health nut, and I sat down with I did a podcast with Hilda Labrada Gore from the Weston Price conference last week, or Weston Price Foundation. And I was at the head of that chapter leader's house, and her 2 daughters were there who are teenagers, and they're in the same boat. My kids are now teenagers, and it's just like, they want to be normal, but they kind of get what their moms are saying, but it's annoying, and they don't really want to, they want to, it doesn't taste the same. And so you're really up against the most evil opponent, because every corner you turn, somebody or something is there to entice your child.
Yes.
So I guess I heard a podcast, I think it was with Hilda, and I forget who she was with, but what you can do for your kids is you can set them up with a foundation of health. And that's what we're trying to do with these kids at the schools. It's like, I'm like, we're building brains, people. Like, we are building brains. You only have a certain amount of time, while their brains are still growing and everything, and you want to just maximize nutrition. So if you can set them up with a foundation of health, and they know what it feels like to feel good, then when they go off the rails, like my son, who, I don't know if this was recorded or if it was before recording, that he went to a high school graduation party, and he's like, we got to go right now because I feel like I'm going to throw up. I'm like, what'd you do? And he's like, I drank 3 sodas. And I'm like, why would you do that? So, they're going to do those things, but then he immediately felt sick. So it's like they're going to have to go down the dark path. And then you just really pray that they circle back, and that they don't go too far down, that they get sick. So that's a real hard, it's a hard place to be as a parent, because when you know better, you do better, and you just want your kids to follow suit. You just want them to get it like you do. But I remember we were talking before, and like, we would have been buddies in college. Like, we were idiots.
Yes.
We just went off the rails and did all these things, and we're invincible. And so, the human body is pretty miraculous. And so I remember my eczema baby after the GAPS diet going off to school, and there was like a pizza party, and it was like, we're on the tail end of the GAPS, and he was just like, am I gonna be able to have pizza? And my husband and I were like, I don't know. We went back and forth, and like, we sent him off to school the next day. I'm like, did we even give him a definitive answer? We were just like, so like, oh my God, he's gonna have pizza. And he came home, and he was just like, I had 1 piece of pizza. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then I was just like, so happy that he didn't have a reaction, that he was okay, and that his body could handle that. So I think as a parent, there's a lot of vigilance when you can control the environment, and certainly in your house, if you don't buy it, they don't have access to it. And then modeling good behavior. So sitting down at the table with them every night, if you can, or as much as you can, and just modeling is the way that I think the highest rates, your best success rates will come if you just, say that this is the way we eat here, and this is the way I want you to, I want you to thrive. I don't want you to be sick. I want you to, but it's hard because you don't want to project fear and disease on your kids either. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing. It's the fear piece, because I always tell people that everything you think you know about nutrition has been sold to you by marketing companies, not by experts, just by marketing companies. It's like, you use the word evil, which I think is wonderful. So I always try to tell people that there's like no right or wrong answer, and you got to do your own research and everything. But there are some people that still think that like children need sugar. And if you think that is the case, you are just wrong. It's just all there is to it. Like, the marketing companies are evil. Sugar is actual poison to a human body. It really is, particularly outside of whole food forms. And that's why it's so important to talk about whole foods. And I love that you touched on, I'm going to talk to my brother about this too, but like the egg yolk and shaved liver, right? If you say that to most parents who's like, they're just now getting their kid like off breastfeeding and onto food, and you say like, give them egg yolk and shaved liver, they will be afraid.
Yeah.
This is how bad the marketing indoctrination is.
Yeah.
Yes.
I need to give them like rice cereal and Cheerios.
Yeah.
Cheerios are sprayed with like glyphosate.
Exactly.
It's like, so it's really, and then like I have another friend whose child is 7 who from the beginning of eating started eating the pouches and still to this day will only eat like bacon, pizza, and pouches.
Yeah.
And French fries. So very limited
Lord.
diet. But then the pouch thing really bums me out. Even if it's a healthier version of whatever, it's like there's no connection. There's no mama in the kitchen or dad in the kitchen making food. There's no smell. There's no sight, no like it's just same texture, same thing. Squeeze it in as fast as you can. Like it's
that's what's weird is I try to just teach people through logic. So you're like, okay, so you could go get pasture raised eggs and you could get, 100% grass fed organ meats. So you have like beef liver and egg yolks. So shaved beef liver, probably the most nutrient dense gram for gram food on planet Earth, that you put on an egg yolk and the child eats it and you're nervous like you're doing something wrong. But you will walk into Walmart and buy Gerber sludge in a little can that's nothing but fruit. You don't know where it came from. You know nothing about the manufacturing facility. You don't know if there's insects in there that got mashed up during the manufacturing process when they made 1 billion pounds of this sludge together in some aluminum machine. Right. And you will just shove that in your kid's mouth and think nothing of it. Like just the common sense of that. But the thing is, and I'm not blaming parents, it's that they need people like us to say that out loud. Like that description that I just gave of where baby food comes from, you need to understand that.
Yeah.
But people don't see it. Well, there's no connection.
I know. And the thing is, it's like, the human body is so resilient that not everybody is going to be sick right away. Right. So it's almost like it'd be better off if you drank a Coke and you drop dead. People be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give my baby that. But it's like a slow drip of like slowly, and everybody's different. So one thing that I learned through studying the GAPS diet and the microbiome is that when a baby goes through the birth canal, they swallow a big gulp of what is their first inoculation of their microbiome. Absolutely. So most moms today, that's another reason I'm really passionate about feeding these kids and educating these high schoolers and these young women that have a chance to rebalance their microbiome before giving birth, and the men, but especially the women who are going to, hopefully baby will go through the birth canal and then and be inoculated with a healthy microbiome. There's just no way that this generation's of kids, their microbiomes are like our great grandmothers were. So in most, like when my book first came out, it was like 287 toxins are in the average baby's cord blood. So they're starting out toxic, then they're inheriting a compromised microbiome. Then they get a vaccine day 1 or 2 of life, and then they might get an ear infection and get antibiotics. I think my nephew or niece was on like 10 rounds of antibiotics by the time they were 2.
Yep.
We all know that just wipes out the good and the bad, and then people try and put yogurt back in, but it's usually like sugary yogurt.
Sugar-filled yogurt, yep.
Or probiotics that aren't really doing, there's all this confusion because what we're finding now is there's just layers of disease. So it's really like, I think kids in their 20s right now are really struggling to figure out what's going on. A lot of them have stuff going on, and they're like, I'm giving up this, but that's not helping. I'm bloated. I don't know what's causing it. I don't poop. Like, it's just so confusing. And then you want to be a kid. So like my goal is really that these kids won't spend their lives chasing health. They will be able to pursue their dreams and passions and go out and enjoy life instead of like, with cancer and epilepsy and all that, you spend your days and all your money, because everything you want to do is not covered by insurance.
Yes.
Chasing health, and it's heartbreaking when you don't find answers, so
well, there's a big thing I want to touch on here, because I love that you talked about your grandmother's microbiome or your great grandmother's microbiome, right? So what people need to understand is that this whole high carbohydrate, low fat thing really started being promoted around the 1950s. So it's not a very long time that this has been around. Right. So now we have people looking at a incredible rise in all chronic disease, and a meteoric rise. 85% of the population is overweight and obese. We now have the ADHD, ADD epidemic. We have people on the autism spectrum just through the roof. They're estimating that I think 1 in 4 kids are going to be on the spectrum by.
1 in 2 are going to have chronic disease.
Yes, it's
like,
mental.
Already here. It's already happening. It's 1 in 2, which is
absolutely. So the thing we think about that I want to try to give people a visual of this and have them wrap their heads around it is I get these parents, and this is where I really start to lose my tempers, right? You'll get these parents that are like 60 and they're like, well, I grew up on peanut butter and jelly and I'm just fine. So I'm going to feed my kid peanut butter and jelly. You're like, this is literally transgenerational. This gut microbiome, like you talked about, what is the fetus exposed to? There's toxins in the umbilical cord now. Like, what are we doing? And then you get the crazy thing where I'm going to remove you from this statement. This is Justin speaking because this is going to be controversial, right? Nothing drives me crazier than people who want this smoking gun of they're like, no, autism or my child's problems is because of this shot that this doctor gave my kid. It is because of this, right? It might be, sure, maybe the science is completely undecided there. But you didn't think for a second about the fact that for 9 months while that baby was inside you, you ate cheesecake, Doritos, and Mountain Dew every single day. You didn't think about that at all. So not only do you want a smoking gun for this issue, you want a smoking gun that absolves you of any and all responsibility whatsoever. And that's what we need to change, is the actual culture is broken.
Right.
You know, it's when you're pregnant, you're eating for 2 so you can have an extra pint of Ben and Jerry's, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's so twisted. And people just need to have that awareness that every body is totally different. Every baby is born different. You know, you cannot say a blanket statement that the way this baby handles the shot is going to be the exact same way that this baby is going to handle it.
Yes.
So everything that you do, and yes, it is a responsibility. As soon as you're pregnant, you're responsible for another human.
Yeah.
And before you're pregnant, if you're planning on getting pregnant, you have that ability to at least do the best you can to rebalance, which is overwhelming for a lot of people because it's like it requires work.
It does.
Right?
It does.
So, but there's no better gift because it's going to be a hell of a lot more work if you have a sick baby.
100%.
There's no better gift than you can give to yourself and your baby and your future and your baby's babies than to take care of things like right now. Like now's the moment. And it's a blip in your life. Like say you spend 2 years healing or say you spend 6 months. I mean, I've had, there's a mom at Manzanita who has 4 kids. And her second child was 9, failure to thrive, like had like dark circles, had gastritis, burping all the time for like 4 years. She decided to do the GAPS diet in 2 months. The kid, I mean, they're still doing it, but within 2 months, even the extended family that was very critical, like, you know, he's fine, just what are you doing? Yeah. Their eyes were opened.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, this child has come alive.
Right.
And now that mom will come to the school and get like heart from me and liver, any bones I have, she's just, and that's what we're really trying to help parents too, is that if I can get, you know, good prices and get stuff into the homes, then, you know, so be it. It's so great. We want those questions to be asked and them to start to inquire and then change their lifestyle at home, you know? So
yeah, and it's such a blip and it doesn't take long. Like when you talk about retraining taste buds, I had this, so I've been experimenting with this.
Days or something.
Yeah, that's so interesting you said that because I was just going to say it's been about 2 weeks for me. So I hate the taste of organ meats. Hate it. So much that like I would freeze it and cut it up into little cube sizes. Yeah, so I just like swallow, you know, little cubes of frozen liver or whatever. And I finally, I talked to this amazing guy on this island in Croatia. He's like traveled the world and lived with indigenous tribes and stuff. And he was explaining that like all babies like the taste of liver. They intuitively like the taste, but parents won't give it to their kids because they don't like the taste as a grown up.
We're squeamish. We're like, ooh.
Exactly. So what I did was every day I took 4 ounces of liver every day and just kind of seared it on a pan and just ate it. And I hated it. And here I am probably like 16, 17 days later. And like, I crave it. I wake up in the morning and I'm excited to eat liver. I changed it that quickly. You know, it's a blip on the radar. I'm not even going to remember that 2 weeks where I had to like stomach some liver. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's switching that this is gross, or this is, I mean, I can get squeamish about, like, I think I cooked tongue. Like my grandmother used to eat tongue, like every, holiday there was tongue out and they loved it. And my mom said they had like liver parties in Maine, and we used to have chicken livers wrapped in bacon. And I cooked a tongue and was just like, oh my God, like, I think I overcooked it and I had to like scrape things. Like, this is a lot. Yeah. But, I mean, now, and my kids will even say, like, Mom, just grind it up and put it into like the, red sauce or burgers, like just sneak it in. Like, don't try and give us liver, just sneak it in. And I actually buy the dog grind at Belcampo. It's really just grass-fed beef mixed in with organ meats. So it's like someone's already done it for me.
Yeah.
So, but it's labeled dog grind. So some people will have to like wrap their brain around that, but it's not.
That's so funny. A guy came over yesterday. I bought a new chest freezer, and a local farmer, this guy, Sam Harvey in Tennessee, is amazing. He got his free range farm, Tennessee or something like that. But yeah, he's great. So he came over and I was talking about organ meats. I said, do you sell a lot of organ meats? Because I bought some beef hearts from him. I got beef livers from him. And he said, I only sell organ meats as dog food. Yeah. And I was like, well, I will take all of your organs, please. Just give them all to me and forget about the dogs.
That mom is that healed her son. She's just like, give me all your organ meats. And then another mama called me like last week. She's going to start some sort of organ meat grind or whatever, because she had a daughter who was dealing with depression and anxiety, and she just started incorporating more organ meats, and that alone turned things
huge
around.
It's huge. It's like nature's perfect multivitamin. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
and you can take it in a pill form if you
Yeah, absolutely. Paleo Valley does it. Ancestral Supplements does it. Those are really cool too. It's just tricky because it's like, if you were eating 4 ounces of beef liver, you'd probably have to take 30 of those pills to get like this, you know what I mean? So it's really not cost effective.
Too.
Yes.
I cooked it up in the kitchen at school. I cooked some beef liver, with just like some onions, and I think I put some cumin on it, a little salt. And like my staff, we were like, I was going to show it to the kids and have them each try some, and then we ended up eating it all. And then I was like, you know what? I was like, we should just eat this because we all need, and like, you just instantly feel it.
Yeah.
They say those things where you're like, wow, I just feel energy. It's like, everyone was like, oh my gosh. It's the same with chicken skin. We'll like fry up chicken skin. Then we're like, well, it's not really enough for the children. We'll just eat it ourselves.
There you go.
You gotta feed the staff too, right?
You're right. You deserve it.
Yeah.
But okay, so I want to dive into this because obviously I could chat with you about just life all day, but I want to get into the nitty gritty of what you're actually doing. So we have